Yes. Today, the name of my speech is Inspire. And, I've wrestled with this topic a little bit. What's it really mean? What is inspiration, and where does it come from? For some of us, we're inspired by music, and some of us are inspired by Metallica, and others are inspired by Beethoven. But my speech today is primarily has to do with me. As I poured over what I should talk about, I kept going back to me, and it's what I know best, for one. But also, I think I have a fairly decent message. This shift in my life that's happened in the last 4 years is pretty amazing, and probably the shift that happened before that, the downhill transgression and then the uphill climb is certainly for me and everybody that is attached to me is a miracle. So I'm going to share with you some of my deepest, darkest pieces of me, and so I ask for anonymity, and I'm not worried about that. And I'm also going to share with you some of my biggest triumphs, and oddly they're all within the same 4-year period. So in 2007 is when it really started to go downhill. I lost everything in the real estate market, like everything, house, cars, pet rabbit even, and my family. Ended up when all these things happened. I ended up getting a divorce, and my wife and kids, my ex-wife and kids, moved to Utah, and so I was far away. So I tried to go and chase them. I tried to go and be close, and I tried to make things stick, and it just wouldn't stick. There was nothing I could do to make a living up there. And I don't know if it was me, or if it was circumstance, or if it was a combination of both, but I found myself just falling down this hill and tumbling down it. I found myself in this ghetto apartment. It used to be a mansion, one of these mansions that they cut into 4. And I was managing it, and I had some tenants that were pretty horrible people. And instead of trying to lead them, I followed them. It led me down this unbelievably horrible path that included methamphetamines. And it was a pretty short piece of my life, but it was a heavy piece of my life. Now, I want to share something with you. Holding these gives me like some heavy feelings. It says here, this is a Happy Valentine's glass rose. But what it really is a crack pipe. I'm not sure if you've ever seen one of these. It conjures feelings of shame, it conjures feelings of embarrassment, and a lot of pain. I like to pass it around and let you touch it. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it before, but this little device, this little $5 device that you can buy from pretty much any smoke shop, has the power and ability to take anybody from any stance in life and put them on the street in a pretty short amount of time. So 3 or 4 months after I was doing this, I was already hurting. I was already really relying on my parents for almost everything, and this just helped that slide just go that much faster and that much harder. And I found myself living in my car for the most part, sometimes in a crack hotel, and sometimes in my cousin's garage. And at the very end of it, I was in this hotel room by myself. I had stolen money from my dad, thinking that I could make it up by buying 2 8-balls of meth and selling them. But instead, the person that was helping me do that took it all, including my car. And I sat there in that hotel room by myself, motel room really, and I smoked what I had left. And I blew this enormous cloud of smoke. Have you ever seen those guys that vape and they look like a locomotive? That's what meth smoke looks like. And I blew it at the mirror, and it hit the mirror and bounced off of it. And as it fell, I looked into my eyes, and I wasn't there. I couldn't see myself. And I sat down on the floor and cried. And the next morning, I called my dad, and I said, Dad, I need you to come and rescue me. Come and save me. And he didn't ask any questions. He just knew. just knew he had to do it. And so he got in his truck and he drove the 12 hours up to Ogden and picked me up. We went by my kid's house where I said goodbye. Perhaps the hardest thing I've ever done. And we drove to Beaver, Utah, where my grandfather, my granddad, my dad's dad is buried. And we left some flowers on his grave. And then we drove to St. George, Utah, where my mom's dad is buried. And we left some flowers on his grave as well. And my dad, as we're leaving the cemetery, he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Matt, I've been praying that God would let your grandfathers touch you and help you come back and help you rebuild your life. We got back in the car and started the 8 hours home, and for some reason, was so this thought of Josh Hamilton. He was a comeback player of the year in baseball a few years ago. He fell again, but I couldn't stop thinking about him, and I couldn't stop thinking, God damn it, I'm going to be the comeback player of the year. This is where I'm putting it back together. I'm getting back up, and I'm going to put this fucking thing back together. And I came down. I was the proverbial 40-year-old guy living in his dad's house, living in his mom's house. But it was the right place for me at the right time. About a week after I got there, we were sitting around the kitchen table, and my dad brought this quote over to me. And it's the man in the arena. I've shared it with you before. It's not the critic who counts, but the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. And I read it out loud, and my mom said to me, you are that guy. You get knocked down, and you get back up. It doesn't matter how hard you get kicked, you get back up. And you know what? I bought it. I believed it. I went from wanting to be this comeback player of the year to believing that I could be this comeback player of the year. And I read it every single day. It's why this quote is so important to me. I started to believe in me again. And I was down. When I wanted to go visit my kids, my very favorite people, I would have to borrow my parents' car and borrow their credit card and drive to Utah. And my budget was so slim that we'd go spend $10 at Target and throw a Frisbee around. But we still got to have that and still enjoy each other. And then opportunities started to present themselves. My brother was an electrical contractor. He does federal work. And I happened to own a low-voltage electrical company at one time. And he said, come to work for me. Put tools on. Get back to work. And I did. I put the tools back on. It had been 15 years since I've used screwdrivers and dikes and screw guns. But I jumped back in there, and every single day worked. And it worked. And worked. And slowly shit started to come back together for me. It's now been about 4 years. Last year, on April 13th, 2014, I literally married the girl of my dreams. Literally married the girl that I used to dream about. She, for a long time, wouldn't talk to me because I'd gone so far off the rails. But somehow I found my way back in. We had one first date where we had just had a drink together. And I went home and cried because I thought there's no way in hell this is happening. Well, about a year after that, she'd broken up with her boyfriend. So we went out on this other date, a real date, where we went and had sushi, and literally by the end of the date, I knew she was going to be my wife. And then it was. And then it happened. I have a four-step process to get yourself back up. It's a really simple thing to remember. Believe, 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 and then work your ass off. Look for inspiration where you can find it, and then use it. When inspiration meets perspiration, miracles can happen. My name is Matt, and I am in the arena. Thank you.